And they don't realize that's how their thought process works. If a white person said, I ascribe to what I've learned with race theory and things that happened in our country and learning about it, do you go, I had a white friend once that totally went black. Would you say that? Would you say that about your white friend who figured something out? No, you only start putting race and that she's a black person who finally started thinking about CRT because she's a black woman. You wouldn't say that about your former white friends.
Exactly, yeah. I'm white. I don't want to be a friend. I guess critical race theory ruined everything. No, it's just nonsense. But it's also not the only cancellation that we've got for you. Let's jump into this one last story to close out our show for today. A Republican in Oklahoma has a new piece of legislation that's a real doozy. So this is Senate Bill 1142. Senator Rob Standridge came up with this. And what it does is, if just one parent objects to a book in a school library, it must be removed within 30 days. So if one parent has a problem with the book, you have to get rid of it within a month. Okay, well, you're probably having a follow-up question. What if you don't? Well, if it's not, the librarian must be fired and cannot work for any public school for 2 years. And because everything in American politics is about a bounty of $10,000, parents can also collect at least $10,000 per day from school districts if the book is not removed as requested. Well, that sounds bad, but bear in mind, a lot of these public schools have so much money sitting around that they can just easily pay that out. That won't bankrupt the whole school. Anyway, so Senator Rob Standridge says that parents and grandparents of public school students have been complaining for a couple years now about books with sexual content, and so he wants to get rid of those. A few that he says he has concerns about include the Trans Teen Survival Guide, Quick and Easy Guide to Queer and Trans Identities, a Quick and Easy Guide to They, Them Pronouns, and The Art of Drag. He was asked, hey, how come all these are about the LGBTQ community? He says, well, yeah, they all are about that. I haven't seen any heterosexual books that are too sexual, but if they gave out 50 Shades of Grey, I'd have a problem with that. Also, he says he's not worried about the Bible being removed because the Old Testament Song of Songs contains graphic sexual depictions, because he contends that schools don't have Bibles on library shelves. Well, soon they won't have any books about the Bible or Christianity, because all it takes is one parent to come in and say, nope, don't want that book or that book or that book. You better get rid of it in a couple weeks or else ching.
I get the feeling that if another parent came and started pushing against books that he likes, those books might not be on the same rapid pace of elimination as these other ones. Maybe. Outside chance.
But you have to, or else the librarian gets stuff. So does everyone get how this ends? There's not gonna be any books in the room. And I get that, like, they're fine with that because they don't want the kids to know anything. But no, not it. Like, everything should be up to the most xenophobic, close-minded person in a community. They get to decide what books your kids have access to. That is the system they're setting up. But don't call it cancel culture. They just think that any ignorant parent should be able to cancel all of the books. Remember when they weren't gonna sell that one Dr. Seuss book? Like, the company didn't want to sell it anymore? That was cancel culture. You canceling every Dr. Seuss book isn't cancel culture, apparently.
No, it's frustrating. So as he's, what was the part? Oh yeah, he hasn't figured anything that would fall under the category that would deem he would think necessary to get rid of these books. This is a one-man show of telling folks exactly what he thinks should be eliminated. I'm one of those people that when someone comes up with one of these stupid rules, I would just exploit it from my other point of view and be like, so this is how this can work. Because you think only your folks can do this. I would start going after every kind of book that makes no sense to eliminate. And eventually they'd get sick of me and go, why did we start this stupid rule? Mr. Jackson keeps coming here and asking us to get rid of random books like the dictionary because there's a word in it that he doesn't like.
Yeah.
But do I get that validation? And they probably tell me no. And I'd ask, so why does this a-hole next to me get the validation of eliminating books? And make them answer that question.
No, they don't want kids to learn anything. They want them to be out there, good, obedient workers with very low expectations for what the quality of their life will be. That's what they want. Unfortunately, we're out of time, but don't worry. Indisputable is coming up. Adrian Lawrence is going to host the show. It's going to be awesome. I will also be doing the main show today, and we have Turks and Jerks. So definitely don't miss that. It's always a lot of fun. Let's see if you can guess who my Turk and Jerk of the year will be. Spoiler alert. It's not that difficult. I'll just say that. Anyway, JR, as always, thank you for joining us for Big News Wednesday. Love to have you here.
Absolutely, John. You sound great, by the way. I hope it's not just the Dayquil talking, but I think you're gonna make it to the day.
I hope so. I hope so. Okay, have a good one.
See you guys.
And with that, everyone, until next time, stay safe out there. Stay sane out there. We'll see you soon.
Hey, it is Adrian Lawrence once again filling in for Dr. Richie, and this is TYT's Indisputable. I'm excited to share a lot of good stories with you today and to share with you the wisdom that is Jackson White. Thanks for joining us, Jackson.
Thanks for having me. It's always good to be here, and it's the first time I've done it with you, so I'm looking forward to that. I think it's gonna be good. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, we're generally holding down Rebel HQ, so it's nice for us to be on this platform together.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, well, let's go ahead and get this thing started. We are gonna kick it off with a story of the Marjorie Taylor Greene Grinch. You know, this holiday, the representative gifted us more ethnocentric ignorance. The Congresswoman from Georgia got big mad about Republicans acknowledging Kwanzaa, and she condemned it as millions were beginning to celebrate this week-long holiday. Let me show you what she did. So the College Republicans, that's a national org of conservative college students, they sent a simple tweet saying happy Kwanzaa. And Green responds with, stop. It's a fake religion created by a psychopath. You aren't bringing in new voters, you are turning them away. People are tired of pandering and BS. You know, the Grinch that is Green, always fun. And what's also fun is when you actually do your research and you will figure out and realize that Kwanzaa is not a religion. But Green didn't bother even looking that up. But let's talk a little bit about what Kwanzaa is. Here's the background on it. So it was introduced by Professor Maulana Karenge in 1966. Kwanzaa is an annual week-long celebration in which African-American families give gifts, eat traditional meals, and light candles in honor of their ancestors. It's based on African first harvest celebrations organized around 5 fundamental kinds of activities: ingathering of the people, special reverence for the creator and creation, commemoration of the past, recommitment to the highest cultural values, and celebration of the good. That's what Karenge said, and she's now the director, or serves as the executive director of the African American Cultural Center in Los Angeles. That's what it notes on, his website. Now, Green, in her, unhinged post, she referenced a psychopath. That's who she was talking about there, Karenge. So this is what we found out per the Huffington Post. Green's allusion to Karenge's past, however, appears to be a reference to his 1971 conviction on charges of assault and false imprisonment, calling himself a political prisoner. Karenge was released 4 years later and has long denied the charges. And so calling him a psychopath simply because she doesn't understand the background that is Kwanzaa, or the fact that it's not even a religion, is just nonsensical. But one thing we do know is that other Republicans and Republicans in general have uplifted Kwanzaa many times. For example, 2017, President Donald Trump issued a statement saying, "Let us celebrate during this joyous time the richness of the past and look with hope toward a brighter future." In 2013, the Republican National Committee also wished people a happy Kwanzaa, which is just a basic, decent thing to do. But apparently Green has issues with it. Jackson, what are your thoughts?
So my initial thoughts is the irony of how she's saying that this is pandering, when actually she's pandering to her racist base. As the Republican Party's been doing, as we know, with things like welfare queens, as they've done with anything that they possibly can to weaken the social safety net overall through that influence. As Marjorie Taylor Greene says, it was started by a psychopath because he got into a fight. How many people have gotten in fights in their lives? How many people have done this and that to make ends meet? Does that make them psychopaths? No. And then fake religion, obviously it's not actually a religion, but what religion's real? Your religion, Christianity. Which version of Christianity is real? Is it Baptist? Is it Pentecostal? Is it all these different denominations? And what about the psychopathic history just within the last 500 years that the European churches have done all over the planet through the name of Jesus to conquer peoples and overall just make money and really just use religion as a scapegoat so that they can get people on their side to do what they do? So it's ridiculous from top to bottom. But again, she's pandering. That's what she's doing because she knows that a certain sect of the Republican base is going to love to hear like, those black people, That's all this is. So,
I love how you go into the fact that she's pandering to her base, and then you just straight sweep the leg as it concerns religion. In terms of like, hey, well, whose story, whose little tale or what they follow or what they believe is really real. And it's so incredible how people will often say that these things like religion needs to be protected, but it has to be my religion.
Exactly, because all the other religions, that means we get to disrespect them, persecute them, make them the enemy. That's all it is. And as we know, luckily she has no real committee assignments, but unfortunately, she's a very big rally to the base to get out and vote. So.
Absolutely. The fact that she didn't have committee assignments because they were stripped from her, it's like she has less work to do, gets the same pay, as I've said before, but less work to do and more free time on our hands to post these shenanigan tweets during the holidays, which is not something we need. But I think we can all kind of also see that this was largely an attack on a tradition and a culture aspect of Black culture. And so, it really shows who Marjorie Taylor Greene is. But we've also seen her engage in plenty of anti-Semitism and all sorts of things that really aren't or shouldn't be reflective of the United States and being a progressive society.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's what that is. But let's go ahead and stick with the holidays. And this is more of a Christmas gift from, I think it'd be a literal Karen in this case. It is causing an uproar on social media right now with folks that are really debating whether a gift given by this woman was a microaggression or a kind gesture. So here are the deets so you can decide. What we have is a white man who posted a picture of Tahitian pearls online that his grandmother gave to his wife. His wife happens to be Black. So this is what the caption of the husband's Reddit post said. Xmas present from my very Karen grandma to my African-American wife. He punctuated the heading with a white embarrassment emoji. And the grandma's card to the Black granddaughter-in-law read, like my Black pearls, rare and of great value. You are the Black pearls of the family. Smiley face. Love you, Karen. Oh, isn't that nice? Now, of course, per the Atlantic Black Star, the public thrashing, it really started pretty soon. It said that the almost 4,300 comments have been made since the Christmas post went up, and most commenting didn't see a problem with the present. A few people said generationally and culturally, her remarks reflected someone trying their best to rise above white privilege. Others even blasted the man for including the palm hand in the note, suggesting he was embarrassed by her. Jackson, how does this hit you?
Honestly, for me, this is just kind of an incident of like a white woman showing that she's white. I don't really think she meant harm on her granddaughter per se. And I don't think that obviously it was meant to blow up this big online. But I'm half Black, half white, and I grew up pretty much primarily only in a Black world. And so like sometimes when I'm around white family members, they'll say things like this, but there's no real malintent behind it. They're just kind of trying to relate or be funny in a way. So, like I think this is an incident where it kind of blew up really big, and it kind of shows a spotlight that white people live in their own world for the most part. But I personally don't feel like she meant harm by doing this. I think she's just old and white.
No, I definitely agree with you. I don't think she meant harm in any way, but we do have to realize that, if there was harm done, if for some reason it made the wife feel even more uncomfortable, the impact is what we have to focus on rather than the intent. That being said, I do think this is kind of funny. Just, it is, because it's someone who probably tried their best and thought it was a sweet gesture. And, they're out looking at jewelry and they're like, I see pearls, but is that Black pearls? Oh, I think she'd like these so much better because she's Black. Like, come on. You're just like, what is going on here? But here's, let's talk about what some of the posters said, because they did kind of get funny. So Gas Grouchy commented, I think acknowledging the fact she is Black and could feel left out, but that she is beautiful and rare in her own regard and loved by the family is completely sweet. I think the cringe card was actually perfectly delivered and genuine. One Big Tobacco wrote, bless her heart, grandma's trying. The delivery needs a little work, but she is trying. And you know what, I agree. People try, and especially, and I don't want to give anybody a pass just because of their age, but generally it bothers me far, far less if the person has more mileage, because times have changed. 50 years ago, 6 years ago, you could call me colored girl and no one would bat an eye. You call me that today and it's like, good luck to you. But I will tell you, I definitely will tell you, with this gift, like, okay, so this is a piece of jewelry and it can be pretty expensive. So if grandma wants to buy me a Black diamond, I will take it. I will take any stone, any kind of gem. If there are Black Benjamins out there, a Black Bentley, whatever she needs me to take to embrace my Blackness, I'll take it.
Right, exactly, especially if it's for free. You know what I'm saying? How can you go wrong with that? But yeah, out of the many stories that we typically cover on Indisputable, I think this is one of the more light and funny ones, so.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Oh my God, so let's look. So in terms of the quality of the gift itself, so according to the retailer Pearl Lang, Black pearls are called Tahitian pearls, and they come from French Polynesia, Fiji, and the Sea of Cortez and the Cook Islands. These specific pearls are considered the most exotic variety of pearls in the market, with the most high quality batch of them going from $1,000 to $36,000. Yeah. So if anybody wants me to buy black pearls or wants to buy me black pearls, white pearls, I'll take any kind of pearls. Just, it's okay. You can pass them along to me.
Right, you can pass me the black pearls or you can pass me the integration pearls, whichever you want, I'll take them.
That's right, yes. That I think it's extremely important that people just give us gifts. Like if you want to give me jewelry as reparations, I'll take it, any color.
Right, yeah. I ain't gonna say no.
And quickly before we go to break, did you get anything good for the holidays?
Yes, I got this new laptop that I'm on because right before I went home, my old one crashed, and that's a problem. So I got this new laptop that's working well, and I got to see my family, which was even better because I actually hadn't been home in several years. So that was great. I got some new nieces, so I hung out with them. So I think that's what I enjoyed the most.
All right, then. Well, that is a good thing indeed. And we will see you all back very shortly. Stick instead.
I'm back to gaslighting. Did you and I talk about gaslighting on Old School?
Probably.
That boss gaslit all his female employees. People who manipulate others like that make you feel like you're the weirdo. Why won't you punch yourself in the face? What is wrong with you? And you're like, oh my God, I feel so bad. Why didn't I just punch myself in the face and poke my eye out? I'm 47 and I just figured it out like earlier this year.
You figured out somebody was doing it to you, or that you were
that it
doing
was that it would have been happening my whole life and I didn't realize it.
Right.
Welcome to Indisputable. I'm your host, Dr. Rashad Richard. We got a lot happening today. But what do we do on this show? We tell the truth. You know why we tell the truth? Because the truth is simply indisputable.
Rashad, great to be here. Congratulations on the new show. And I gotta let everybody know that Rashad and I go way back.
Here's the pattern that we see in all of these Karen stories. They think they own stuff they do not own. Now, where does that come from? I don't know, maybe slavery. Maybe they think they should still own black people.
This is what happens when Karens weaponize the police.
When you're used to privilege, equality seems like oppression.
It hits you in a certain way when someone is holding you against your will, treating you like you're a criminal and you're an innocent person. This is something that black people face no matter where they are.
A stronger black economy lends itself to a stronger, greater economy. Don't think it's exclusive of you, it's inclusive of you.
What's your beef with critical race theory?
It adds more fuel to the fire of the racist tendencies that we already have.
We have a generation of problem solvers that can remedy the problem if they are properly taught what the problem is.
You know who created redlining in this country? It was a white liberal.
I don't give a damn who created it. If it's a racist policy, Shelley, here's what I don't know. I don't know. See, there you go filibustering, brother. You're scared of this truth, but you're gonna get it though.
Do all of you know the Young Turks?
An outlet like yourself that's willing to cover this story from the very beginning.
You have the Young Turks and a bunch of other progressive forces saying this is the time to fight for our values.
And I think right now there are a lot of progressive voters, many leftists who feel like they don't have a home.
And this is why what Cenk and the Young Turks are doing is so important.
What we've done is sustainable, slow, healthy growth. And I think that's the way news should be, where you don't rely on sensationalist stuff. You don't lean on whatever's trendy in the news at any given moment. You know, you just go with the truth.
You gave me a platform.
You've uplifted so many other progressive voices through this network, and you're constantly looking for people that you can amplify through the work we do, through the infrastructure that you built at TYT.
It takes those early people who believe that can really be the seeds of this movement, and that has been the Young Turks.
We're super serious about the news. We also managed to do it in a way that is fun and lighthearted. We're not TYT, you're TYT.
Welcome to the Damage Report. I'm John Idarola. This is gonna be a big one. Meanwhile, in the Arctic, you know where this is going. You watch the Damage Report. The Arctic's on fire. Obviously, why would we be talking about the Arctic except to tell you that it's melting once again? The Republicans aren't that interested in it. I wonder why. Lift out of poverty up to 3.7 million people, including an estimated 1.3 million children. Hashtag save the children? Not if it costs money. I mean, come on.
Hey, it's Adrienne Lawrence. Thank you for joining us again. TYT's Indisputable, filling in for Dr. Richie. And we appreciate you joining us as well as being members. And your membership, it helps keep TYT sustainable and empowers us to fight for positive change in this world. So by becoming a TYT member, you'll be part of a change machine that won't stop until we have a world that's better for ourselves and future generations. So we encourage you to join the fight at tyt.com/change. Also, something good coming up tonight. We know that 2021 has been a year that promised to be better than the last, but really, was it? I say no, but whatever. But you can take a progressive look back at the year and join Jank, John, Dr. Rashad Ritchie, and Senator Nina Turner as they crown the ultimate Turk and Jerk of the year. We want to know who you think the Turk and Jerk is, so go to tyt.com/polls and put in your vote. And then tune in tonight, December 29th, 8 Eastern, 6 Pacific at tyt.com/live or on YouTube. Also, there are sales going on, and they are on sale right now, everything at the TYT shop. Don't miss out on Shop TYT's last sale of the year with 25% off site-wide. That's huge. And I will have to drop the fact that my book, Staying in the Game, 3-time award winner, right behind me. Well, yeah, that's on the shop too. So hook yourself up. 25% off site-wide. Celebrate the new year with some indisputable merchandise as well at shoptyt.com. And also coming up later today, you're going to watch a conversation live at 5:30 Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific at tyt.com live before the Young Turks. And let's hear from what our TYT members had to say. So, we have Rebel Dragon saying Jackson White and Adrienne Lawrence. What a Wednesday treat. Loving the matching dreads. For real. I can.
Right. Look at that. It just happened to work out just like that.
It's a beautiful thing. I dig it. And Mickey C, the silver-haired dragon, said, love Jackson. If only I were 50 years younger. Ooh, Jackson.
I'm gonna have to make a time machine for you.
Oh, hey, look like you got options, Mickey C.
Hey.
Also, regarding Kwanzaa, I Am Sock says she's moving down the list of holidays to have a war on. First Christmas, now Kwanzaa, next New Year's, MLK, Valentine's. Yeah, Marjorie Taylor Greene, piece of work. And we got at the YouTube super chat, $5 for Bazilla. Thank you. Why can't we say Happy Hanukkah when it's Hanukkah? Merry Christmas for Christmas and Happy Kwanzaa when it's Kwanzaa. Don't get me started. There's no reason we can't. It's just some people don't want to acknowledge other cultures, other belief structures, other celebrations. They're just haters. Nonsense. On Twitch, we have River and Ravens about the Black Pearl said, well-intended, just real cringe. Yeah, they are cringe, but I'm gonna cringe my way to the bank with anything nice I'm given. I don't care, I will take it. But yeah, I feel you. And also, we're working on our Twitter situation, but there's a reminder, you can tweet at Indisputable TYT and tag hashtag Indisputable so we can read your comments live on air. And we have some great comments for you, and I know you are going to have some comments on this, Karen.
You want to call the police on them for having a barbecue on a Sunday.
I feel free! Back off! I'm going to tell them there's an African-American man threatening my life. Say that.
Ma'am, no weapons on you or anything like that?
No, here.
No, that's okay. Stand up for me, please.
No.
Just make sure you have any weapons on you.
Look, I don't even have pockets.
Turn around. I don't want to touch you.
I don't have pockets.
Okay. Under arrest for battery.
I didn't do any battery.
No, when you spit on people, that's battery.
No, I I did not. Listen, he verbally abused me.
Well, that doesn't give you the right to spit on him. That's what. You verbally abused me as soon as I got here. Did I spit on you?
No.
You're under arrest for battery. No, yep, definitely doing that.
That hurts.
Yeah, they're handcuffs. They're not for comfort.
Can I take my purse?
Absolutely. Come on.
Oh,
let's go.
please don't. No,
Oh,
don't
no, you're
hurt
definitely
me,
going to jail. Let's go. Walk.
Unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
Can I leave my car here?
That's absolutely fine. Sure.
Yeah, this is unbelievable.
Yep.
Unbelievable.
10-15.
Officer, this is unbelievable.
Let's go.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Well, I'll get a good attorney.
God bless you.
Yep. God bless me. God, because I'm a Christian.
Christians don't talk like you.
No, but you know what?
No.
I just went through. Can I put that in my purse, please?
I need to
Will
collect
you
your property. You are a prisoner now. I need to collect your
I've
belongings.
never been a prisoner.
Well, you are tonight.
Please
No,
don't.
no, you're going to jail.
Please don't.
Open your hand. What is this?
It's my Kleenex.
Okay,
For
so
my nose.
let it go.
Well, can you give me a Kleenex?
Confirm for me,
Please
or
don't do this. Please. I didn't do anything.
How about you just stand there and stop talking? How about we do that? How about we do that? That doesn't give you an excuse to act the way that you're acting. None. Just stop talking.
This officer saw me last night. I've been having a lot happening in my life.
You really think that's going to happen?
With a simple I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. But you, can you apologize too? I apologize. I'm not a racist. I have friends that are Muslim. Okay? I have friends that are Muslim. Oh, that hurts. You're hurting my hand.
well, they're handcuffs. They're not for comfort.
Well, I've never had handcuffs.
So that's a no. Okay.
Ooh, that was definitely a Karen in full effect, starting with spitting on people and then hitting the I'm not racist, I have Muslim friends. Jackson, I'll let you go ahead and share your thoughts.
So the first thing that comes to mind is people don't want to go to jail, which means that when they do things that they're not supposed to do, they typically have a way out or a way to get away with it. So this woman thought that spitting on these people, she was going to walk away from it. She thought that she was just going to get out, which obviously shows the privilege. But again, I mean, I talk about this with Dr. Richie all the time. People do stuff. You don't know what people will do to you. If you just walk up in their face, yelling at them, screaming at them, and spitting on somebody, somebody might pull out a knife and cut you. Somebody might pull out a gun and shoot you, or just beat you up really bad, first and foremost. And then it was funny, obviously, seeing her, begging and acting like, I've never been in jail and stuff. It's like, yeah, well, that's nice. And she was saying all that because she knew she didn't have an argument. She just felt stupid. But she didn't think about any of these things because she really thought that she was going to be able to spit on people and just walk free.
And you know what? That really does showcase some kind of sense of privilege, like this audacity to think that you can just spit on someone and, and not face any consequences. And a lot of people out there don't realize that spitting on someone is a battery. That's an assault. That is you making contact with someone else in an offensive way, even if it's just your saliva. And as we know, spitting on someone is probably one of the worst things you could do to them in terms of insulting them. And so this woman here trying to pull out the I'm a Christian, never been in trouble before. She was really trying to grab every sympathy card possible when she just should have acted right from the jump.
Because Jesus went around spitting on people, of course. That's what he did. He spit on the lepers and he spit on the poor. But, again, it's just, like you said, spitting on someone might be the most disrespectful thing you can do to them. And, even if the police didn't get involved, let's say she just got hit, she would have been saying the same stuff. Poor me, I don't deserve this. Why are you attacking me? They're hitting me if the police showed up. So, it's good that she got in trouble for it because more people need to get in trouble for things like this because it's not okay to go around harassing people because you don't want to wear a mask or some other trivial matter.
Yep, and and her being arrested and probably being taken to jail. I hope her one Muslim friend can come pick her up because that was all sorts of nonsense. But speaking of jails, we are going to move from arrest to incarceration to a story that comes out of New Jersey. So this one comes to us from the Essex County Correctional Facility, where a 22-year-old man who was suffering from schizophrenia was beaten by several inmates, about 7, and nothing was done. Now, this individual, he was left in a coma for about over 2 months. Why don't we put up a picture of him? This young man here, this is Jashawn Boyd. 22 years old, schizophrenic. He was in the Essex County Correctional Facility after minor offenses, 2 minor offenses. And he's in the facility and he is beat up. And while we talk about this issue, one thing we do know is that it was all captured on video. So there should be no dispute whatsoever. But before we show you the footage, which can be very jarring, what I want to do is essentially describe this attack to you based on how it was documented, at least by the New York Times. So what they said is that in surveillance video of the assault that was shared last month on social media, 7 men in a jail day room are shown knocking Mr. Boyd to the floor and stomping his head. One by one, they return to pummel him with their fists, a microwave, a water cooler, a broom, and an industrial bucket filled with bleach during an attack that continues well after Mr. Boyd appears to lose consciousness. That is a harrowing incident, an assault upon this 22-year-old schizophrenic man. And we're gonna show you the footage now, but please remember that this is very disturbing. It also does not come with audio. Here it is. They used a microwave, a broom, bucket full of bleach. They were attacking this man in a ruthless way, and he was unable to defend himself. His injuries were incredibly severe. Let me go ahead and tell you what we know about them per the New York Times. Severe brain injury has left him unable to walk or eat solid food on his own, his mother said, and has damaged his short-term memory. Each of the men in the video has been charged with attempted murder. The beating, which is under investigation by county prosecutors, lasted at least 2 minutes and 11 seconds without any intervention by guards. That's according to a copy of the footage that was obtained by the New York Times. Jackson, your thoughts?
So I think that I really want to focus on just the culture of imprisonment and punishment that we have, and how the prison system itself makes society worse, and how it really just taps into our more primal and arcane nature to kind of shun those out of the tribe who we deem to be dangerous. But the difference between now and 100,000 years ago is we understand things like psychology, we understand nature versus nurture, we understand how our environments really impact the way we live our lives. And so these prison systems that do nothing about rehabilitation, they don't really look at the core root of people's issues, the types of homes they grew up in, the types of economic backgrounds they come from, the types of gang-related activity that they come around in. Those root issues are not really focused on. Instead, it's punish, punish, punish. We know that we have more prisoners in America than any other country. We know about our arcane drug sentencing laws. We know all about this, and we know that a very small group of people make money from it. But literally, the prison system in and of itself that has these types of environments where people are basically just caged animals, you can't come out and do better. You have no opportunities when you come out, and so you just end up right back in. And so a lot of those people that we saw beating on that young man likely were in and out of juvenile, in and out of prison throughout most of their lives. Now, maybe that's not the case, but that's really a lot of what we see for people who end up in prison, because that's the environment that they're in. And overall, society just really doesn't care. So it's sad to see, but that environment just breeds more of itself, and it replicates itself in the streets. So,
you know what? I think that is definitely that is a thought, and that is an issue without question, whether it's recidivism or the lack of rehabilitation, where we're just focusing on essentially more of a penal punishment system. But in terms of this issue here with Boyd, this is a problem. What those men did was it was absolutely unacceptable. There is no reason or way that you should have 7 people pummeling on one individual who is obviously suffering from mental health issues. He has serious mental health issues. You can see it on his face and with his body. So they knew he was different. And whatever he may have done to upset one of them, it did not justify in any way for them to do what they did. The fact that they were using a microwave to bash him, they were stomping him out, throwing bleach on him. That is disgusting, and it is warranting attempted murder charges, because that is clearly what they were trying to do. And when it comes to mental health, what we have to remember is that Boyd is one of the 10 to near 25% of inmates, incarcerated people who suffer from serious mental illness, who are at the facility. And these facilities are not equipped to support their needs. They are struggling, and without having the proper supervision, you have situations like this where you have more predatory behavior going on that hurts these people who are already very vulnerable. And so what we found out, at least from the Times, about the problems here is that last year, after being arrested on charges that stemmed from incidents with his family at their home, this is Boyd, in Elizabeth, New Jersey, Boyd was transferred from the Essex County Jail to a psychiatric hospital and later released. He was set to plead guilty to the charges, which were just criminal mischief and unlawful possession of a knife. But he missed the sentencing, which is often the case with people with mental health. But anyways, it led to a warrant for his arrest. When he turned himself in, he was sent back to jail and placed in a traditional housing unit, a decision his lawyer and parents questioned given his mental health history. Indeed, that is a question of why did they put him in the general population with everyone else if he clearly has mental health issues? He is a vulnerable individual. He does not need to be around others who could potentially, just like they did here, prey on him. But what we also need to talk about is the fact that there has been an uptick in violence, particularly in these East Coast, New York, New Jersey facilities recently, and it's extremely problematic. I know a lot of us have talked about the overcrowding, the essentially lack of supervision with guards not necessarily showing up for work, also the conditions that are poor based on COVID-19 and this pandemic and its impact. And the reality is that people are dying. The Times had also noted that another spasm of violence came on December 3rd when Dan Milford Gelin, 27-year-old, died after being stabbed by another detainee at this facility. Now, a fellow prisoner has been charged with murder, and the county prosecutor's office and the state attorney general are currently investigating his death. Let's go ahead and put up a picture of Mr. Gelin. This 27-year-old man was murdered in this Essex County correctional facility. We have seen this increase of violence. It is due to overcrowding, and the fact is there's a lack of accountability. We also know that paramedics of emergency medical techs were called to the jail 169 times between January and June to treat either officers or detainees. That is up from 99 times during the same period last year. And that's according to documents released by the union, the Fraternal Order of Police Lodge 106. Violence and resignations have also increased in state prisons, according to William Sullivan. That's a president of a separate union that represents about 6,000 New Jersey correction officers and the Police Benevolent Association, Local 105. About 450 officers resign each year, Sullivan said, and the pipeline for training new guards has slowed drastically. There is a problem, not just by way of having these inmates essentially who are vulnerable put in positions where they can be preyed upon and hurt, as Mr. Boyd was, but also the fact that we don't have supervision. We don't have the safety protocols, things in place to ensure that we are properly monitoring and watching over inmates who need our help, because they cannot be left on their own. Jackson?
Yeah, I agree 100%. The fact that he was in this facility in general population didn't make sense, but it goes to show a lot. If you don't have money, it's really every man for himself. And prosecutors and just the way that our law system works, it's about getting them in. Get the charges, get them in that cell. Once you do, who cares? You don't have the money to really get the best lawyer. This is the type of stuff that you look at. And overall, society just does not care about these people because they're not white. They don't have money. And who cares if they have mental health issues? They have some type of a record, and that's good enough. So ultimately, I think that, unfortunately, this is an issue that's going to take decades to fix because we have so many problems at the same time. But what happened to him was totally wrong. And the fact that they just let it, just for minutes and minutes, all those weapons that were used against him, what were they doing besides just watching it happen?
Yeah, seriously. I do definitely think that the men who attacked Mr. Boyd, they do need to face attempted murder charges. Yeah. But I also think that the guards who stood idly by and did not a damn thing as Mr. Boyd was pummeled nearly to death, that they also need to face some kind of charges, because you have a duty to protect people, to monitor people, to intervene. And the fact that you do nothing, especially with a vulnerable member of society who doesn't have the wherewithal to actually maybe interact with society in a way that's not necessarily going to cause issues or tension, you need to protect them. And the fact is, Boyd wasn't protected, and that means we got a problem. But we also do definitely have more stories for you. We will be back very shortly. Stick and stay.
Our audience has given us everything, so we couldn't be more connected. When we first started, people would start giving us directions and say, okay, the mics are too large, move them. Turn them into lav mics. I mean, they were incredible. And then one guy walked in and gave us a really expensive switcher and said, you guys need this, and walked out. Okay, it's amazing. They helped us build a studio. They did a $2 million funding campaign for us. And so they really are us. We do this show together to the point where some of our hosts are even former listeners. So when we say that the audience is part of TYT, we really mean it.
I think what the audience also appreciates is especially if they're members, they really get an inside look into who we are, our personal lives, what drives and motivates us. It goes beyond just storytelling. I think that what we do is allow our viewers and our listeners into our daily lives, and we give them kind of like this inside look into everything that we're passionate about and why it is that we're doing what we're doing, right? Like the motivation behind what we're doing, I think, is important for our audience to know, and we're not shy about sharing that with them. And it's different from what people typically see in legacy media outlets, where everything is kind of dry and robotic and there's really no personality or authenticity that comes along with it. Oftentimes when we're doing the show, I don't really think of it as me telling them stories. I think of it as us having a mutual respect and conversation with one another. And as I said earlier, I mean, not only do I feel that through the work I do, I'm informing our audience, but they inform me oftentimes as well. They'll pitch stories to us. They'll tell us, a certain perspective or angle to a story that we might have missed. And I love it.
Our TYT audience has been building this show and this network with us for 20 years. Now we're expanding and connecting our audience around the world in even more exciting and powerful ways. Look, I don't want you to miss another petition, poll, community conversation, or TYT segment. Connect with informed, passionate, and compassionate progressives, and even new progressives. They're joining our movement every day. This is going to be amazing when we work together. So our community members are learning together, they're building lifelong relationships, and even politically organizing together. Here's what Power Slave Wolf has to say as they begin interacting with our community after making TYT their #1 trusted news source. Quote, I've been a TYT viewer since the Obama years and have since found them to be a far more trustworthy news source than most TV news outlets. Away from viewing TYT, I'm a musician, electric bass guitar, sim racer, satire enthusiast, and rollerblader, the latter being my main means of intense exercise. TYT, my local news. None of the stations in my area are Sinclair owned as far as I know, and comedy style news shows are my trusted news sources. The former and the latter both having something in common in that both have something that TV news sorely lacks: a very low tolerance for BS. So sign up for free at tyt.com/community. We're making it easier to connect, stay informed, and even take action.
Hi, I'm Bartholomew Joseph Kyle. I do audio for the main show, The Young Turks. I also do audio for Post Game. I started in 2006. I met Cenk Uygur at the Iraq for Sale screening that was directed by Robert Greenwald. And watching that, I want to figure out a way to be part of something that's genuine and authentic.
You're back with Indisputable and Adrian Lawrence. And what are you doing tonight? I'd like to hope that it is watching Turks and Jerks. That's a progressive look back at the year. I want you to join Cenk Uygur, John Iadarola, Dr. Rashad Ritchie, and Senator Nina Turner as they crown the ultimate Turk and Jerk of the year. If you do want to vote on who you think should be the Turk and Jerk of the year, well, I want you to go to tyt.com/polls and vote. You can tune in tonight, December 29th at 8 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific on tyt.com/live or YouTube. Let's see what the members have to say. So, hey, we have Spitting Karen. Now, we were talking about her, and V says that spitting on someone during this age of Corona takes it to a whole different level. She is lucky she didn't get charged with biological terrorism. That's right, because who knows? She could have had halitosis, been burning holes in walls. I don't know. Occam's Taser said, I forgot my funny handcuffs in the squad vehicle. My fuzzy handcuffs, excuse me. Yeah, I think she wanted something a little more comfortable because apparently that's what happens when you're arrested. Well, I guess some people do get that comfort treatment. Mickey C, the silver-haired dragon, said, I'm a Christian. No matter how I search, I can't find where her Jesus said, thou shalt spew hateful epithets and spit on others. Yeah, totally agree. About the man attacked in prison, Mr. Boyd, just another radical said that camera is being controlled by a live guard while the attack is going on. That's a hell of a thing. Mickey C, the silver-haired dragon, said, our government care about mental health care for people on the outside. Why would they care about the people who they have thrown away into prisons and forgotten about them? That is a damn good question. The YouTube super chat about the Black Pearl gift. Trudy Lawrence, no relation to my knowledge, gave us a good $20, thank you. And grandma was being sweet. Remember, colored was the preferred in the 50s and 60s. Yep, that's right. Grandma gets a pass for age and time. I ask all of us to have charity if folks are trying to get education and be inclusive. All right, so as far as Karen Spitz, Kev Z, $10, thank you. Says Karen Playbook, step 1, it's my rights. Step 2, I'm a Christian. Step 3, cry. Step 4, point to non-existent friend of color. And step, I'm guessing 5, still doesn't work, go to jail. Yep, that's what happened to her. Zoinks from Space 333 with the $5, thank you, says at Jackson, Jesus got that miracle spit. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, she do. That's it. That's all it was. She got that holy water.
Oh my God, ooh, Lord. As far as the man attacked in prison, Mr. Boyd, Andrea Larson, $10, thank you, said, my oldest son just turned 22. The fear that young man must have had is heartbreaking. I pray for his family while they'll never have true justice. Their son is gone. I hope one day they find peace. Fortunately, he did not die. He is making his way to recovery, even though I don't know if recovery will be complete for Mr. Boyd at all, but hopefully there will be some semblance of justice. As far as the spitting Karen goes on Twitch, Natura the guy says, spit is a gunshot in 2021. I don't know, I'd rather be spit on than shot, but still, it's a problem in 2021, that's for sure, with this pandemic still raging. As far as a man attacked in prison, Jax Drax says, once placed in the system, they are no longer treated or considered people. It's disgusting. Yeah, Justice Jackson was saying. And then Venom Menen says, thank you, Adrian, always speaking up for us fellow neurodivergent folk and bringing that perspective. You're welcome, I do my best for sure. This world needs to take more of us into account. But we are gonna go ahead and talk about an accounting that probably should have happened down in Dallas. So Dallas detectives, what they did is they seized more than $100,000 from a woman's suitcase at the Dallas Love Field Airport. However, Dallas police, they didn't charge the woman, still haven't charged her, but they took her cash. So here's the background on this. The detectives say that they smelled a drug odor before they searched the woman's luggage without her permission, but did not arrest her and haven't charged her with a crime. A police canine alerted the two detectives with the Dallas Police Department to a black check suitcase secured by a lock. The dog, named Valentine, is trained to pick up the scent of cocaine, heroin, marijuana, and methamphetamines. That's according to the report. What the detectives found was a shipping bag that was wrapped in blankets containing $100, $50, $20, $10, $5, and $1 bills inside the suitcase. Now, there were no clothes or other items in the luggage at all whatsoever. What does this say to you, other than the fact that, hey, maybe you shouldn't be going through my luggage, but that's fine, I guess, if you do. Jackson?
Well, I think that, civil asset forfeiture is one of the things that obviously legally gives law enforcement the right to have authoritative power. And actually, I was reading that 80% of people who have their assets seized don't get charged with crimes. And since the year 2000, $68 billion in assets have been seized from people. So you got to think about, people who may be barbers, who may be, dancers of various kinds, or just have cash-based businesses. These are the people who civil asset forfeiture targets the most. And obviously, of course, minority groups is who this impacts the most because, more so than not, when you're in a higher elevated status, you're not really dealing with cash as much. So, the fact that they took $100,000 from this woman and didn't charge her, didn't look into where it actually came from, and she may not be able to get it back ever because this is what happens. And, this money, $68 billion since 2000, what are they doing with this? Selling it, keeping it? Maybe those assets, maybe that money could actually be sent towards community projects or social programs. But of course, they're not taking the money for, to enhance society in any type of way. They're taking the money and the assets because it gives them money and assets. So I think that's actually an interesting idea to push. I mean, if y'all gonna take all this money from people, you might as well reinvest it into the community or something.
No, yeah, you definitely think that's the case. But, you're right, as you bring up with civil asset forfeiture, having these laws where the police can seize, they can keep your property, end up selling it or whatnot, as long as they think it's involved in a crime. And, the person ends up having to go to court in order to fight to get it back. And when it comes to TSA or Dallas police, the thought is that if you have a substantial amount of cash on you, it's kind of this automatic presumption that it is suspicious in some way. And thus they ultimately end up maybe having probable cause and thinking that it's connected to a drug deal or some kind of crime in some way. And thus they are empowered to seize it. In this situation here, it appears that the woman explained, hey, I've got all these dollars because I am a dancer. That's right. She claims that she's a dancer. She also happens to work in real estate, and she obtained the cash through the sale of a house. Now, according to the Atlanta Black Star, the Dallas PD celebrated the seizure on social media. A post to the department's Facebook page showed Valentine posing behind the cash. We need to get him some treats. Canine Officer Valentine does it again. On 12/2/21, the Love Field Interdiction Squad seized over $100,000 with the help of Ballantyne. Good job, Ballantyne, the caption read. Look at the picture of Ballantyne, as you can imagine. Ballantyne's a good boy. Ballantyne always been a good boy, but he's just being directed by some shady people, as far as I'm concerned, taking people's money without having good reason.
All right, he's just making his handlers happy. That's all he's doing.
Yeah,
and again, you know, that when I read that 80% of people who have had assets taken did not get charged with that's significant. That's arbitrary. I mean, that's what that is. You don't have numbers that high unless it's done on purpose. And again, what is the whole purpose of it? Because now we have more money, now we have more assets that we don't have to be responsible for. You know, so it's arbitrary power that really doesn't benefit the community in any way whatsoever. I really can't think of any benefits of this other than, and two, this is drugs, so just take it. There's no real protocol into proving that it's drug money. You can just say that it is. So,
and also you end up putting people in a situation where it's like some people cannot necessarily use banks, or maybe they don't feel comfortable using banks. And so some people like to operate in cash, but it essentially ends up punishing those people. And as you mentioned, that report, that study that was found that up to 80% of the people whose assets are seized aren't ever charged. And it predominantly hits Black and brown people. It just tells you that something shady's going on, and it's definitely ingrained in the system. But let's go ahead and move on to our next story. Now this one is very interesting when we come to having conversations about racism. It was during an appearance on C-SPAN, Washington's Journal. There was a Kansas man who identified himself only really as Gordon. Well, he complained about author Heather McGhee's new book, The Sum of Us, When Racism Costs Everyone and how we can prosper together. So listen to this caller, what he asked of Heather.
Gordon, Kansas City Republican, you're up first, go ahead.
Hi, thanks for taking my call. Hi, Heather. I'm so the opposite of you, and I wonder if you get up in the morning and you have to fight that white blood off because it's trying to make you a racist. You have to fight that white blood off, and all this stuff that you're talking about was addressed in the 60s. Low-income housing was built. You guys got child care, anything. You've always got your hand out, and I just think it's pitiful that you think you write a book and you know everything about every white person alive.
Now, when I get up in the morning, I definitely do not wipe the white blood off. Yeah, Jackson.
Yeah, my big thing about this is that, you know, this guy calls in and, you know, the whole thing about white blood and you got your hands out and, you know, just generally, obviously not understanding the plight of social welfare that helps people like him as well. It's not just about Black people. It's not just about minorities. We know that white people overwhelmingly use, you know, welfare programs more than anybody else. But I just, you know, having to deal with stuff like that, I think that more than anything, for me at least, it shows that the Republican voting base is not going to change and that all they really have in their arsenal is to continue to go with the same race baiting tactics that keep people like this going against, you know, policies that actually impact people like him in communities like West Virginia that I live right next to, you know, dying coal states where these types of programs and Build Back Better actually help these individuals. So it's just funny to hear people say stuff like that because it's like you're really just talking about yourself and your own community. So.
Yeah, and no, people don't get it. They like to do this us-them dialogue, this thought of, oh, it was addressed in the 60s. Oh, the Civil Rights Act was passed. Things were magically fixed. Oh, you had integration. You have all the opportunities. Nothing's changed or everything's changed, you know, other than you're complaining. It shows you how much people are invested in these narratives that really do not in any way help advance us or actually really recognize what is going on and how a lot of these laws and, you know, these things that are passed, they're just farces. There's nothing really to them. There's no substantive impact. But, you know, I wouldn't have responded to that question as well. But the author, Heather McGhee, she actually handled it pretty well.
She did.
Check out her response.
I want to ask, who is selling that story? Who's profiting from your average white American holding such negative views about their fellow American? I am not at all saying, and I don't say in The Sum of Us, that all white people are the same. But I do ask that question of everything we believe comes from a story we've been told. So I want to know who's selling a story that white people are the contributors to society and Black people are the takers of society. Who's selling ignorance about the great accomplishments of the Black community and how many obstacles had to be overcome? Who's selling stereotypes in cable news day in and day out? And how are they profiting from it? That's the question I ask in the book. I hope against hope that you might grab a copy from your local library and read it, or read just a chapter or two of it and see if the interpretation that you have of what the message is stands up. Because I did write the book not just for people like me, not just for Black and brown folks, but for all of us to stop sort of criticizing each other and look more at the people who are profiting from a rigged economy.
You know what? God bless her. That was such a smooth, professional, respectable response that I know I wouldn't have had in me. But I know that she is the author, and Heather McGhee's specialty is really in the American economy and the mystery of why it so often fails the American public. And so this is a book that talks about the collapsing public infrastructure, racism, politics, policymaking, how it has impacted us. And as you can see the cover here, the sum of us. It definitely seems like it's worthwhile to go ahead and get your hands on to check out, because, hey, we need change and we have to understand the system and also how money in the economy, capitalism, truly has that impact on us. And it seemed that Heather McGhee really, she had that down. Jackson, what are your thoughts?
I think her response was brilliant. And I think that not only did she sell the book, but she actually really briefly and quickly painted the picture of what America is, who actually built this country, who kicked their feet up while it was being built, and how recent a lot of the stuff that he mentioned really is. My father's 70 years old, and when he was a kid, schools weren't segregated in many places. So a lot of this stuff is in fact still new. It's still going on, and we haven't gotten out of these issues. We're still living them today. So I think her response was brilliant.
Yes, absolutely. And I do hope to get a copy of that book. And I want to thank you so much, Jackson, for joining us today. Where can the people find you?
Yes, you can follow us at Politiscope app on Instagram and Twitter. We got some revamps coming up. We help you stay up to date with legislation. And so we're excited to let you guys know what we got coming soon. But it's been great to be on here with you, Adrian. I hope we can host shows together more often.
Yeah, that would definitely be very dope. In the meantime, we'll just keep holding it down on Rebel HQ, so I can dig that too.
All right.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Stick and stay.
Old school's pitched to me from Jake. It'll just be me, you, Jesus, Ben, and maybe Michael. And we're like, okay, cool. I can do that every week. As you can see, me, Jesus, Ben.
When you make the order, it says, don't exceed $20.01. So I'll just order literally anything to get it as close to that as I possibly can.
I'm sorry that I ordered $45 worth of food and got an email saying, sir, would you like to rethink that? What are you talking about?
I was in hell. I was just like, oh my God, the theater's empty, nobody's here. Everyone on screen keeps fucking cursing. Why did I let this happen? And the whole thing looks like it was shot through a glass of milk. My mom's gonna be so mad.
If you're looking for a heart attack, the short way, baby.
Wrong. I did put mayonnaise on it. I'm the most in shape, overweight person you'll find.
That's right.
He was like, why didn't you answer my call? I called you 39 times.
Yuck. But what makes you stop right before 40? What makes you say, nah, man, I ain't doing that no more. I'm cool.
And I called you back on the air. And I was like, okay, Kevin Smith, big shot. What the you said you'd come on and you didn't come on.
I'm sure I took that very well.
Yeah, you did. You called me back the next day and said, I thought it was 7 a.m. There's now deep fake porn. I don't know if you guys have heard of this.
I heard of it. I just had some in the car.
I'll tell you who I'm not Ben Mankiewicz. Have you guys ever felt that?
Not ever.
And now it's just the three of us.
This is the intimate hour.
By the way, the last half hour of this, we're not even rolling.
Fair enough.
Hey,
Kingsley.
See, I watch movies.
I'm done with both of you.
Once Craig starts laughing, I can't stop. And I was just gonna ask you about getting high, snoogans, snoochie boochies.
And members, of course, you can get the whole damn thing. TYT.com, join and free trial.
I'm old school with the old folks. Good.
John, come back.
Field goal here. It's time to switch to beer.
Oh, man.
Oh, God.
Do your best.
He's a little like...
Oh. No one's happy now.
Give him another try.
Oh. Wow.
This is the weirdest game.
I'm Brett. I would like to refer to this segment as the Do I Still Have This Talent show. So I want to see if I can play harmonica without my hands. I don't know why I have that. Nothing's gonna be more impressive than that. I can also spin a basketball on my finger. While drinking. I'm gonna spin a basketball on my finger while drinking apple juice. You can do this, dude. It's also flat. I don't know if that helps or hurts. And it seems to be somewhat wobbly. Ta-da! Nope, I don't know how to do this one. This one's a fail. Nope. Oh God, I'm so mad.
And you're back with Indisputable. Adrian Lawrence filling in for Dr. Rashad Ritchie. And do not worry, just because the good doctor is in here does not mean you're gonna miss out on your daily dose of the bullpen. Here is a throwback to Dr. Ritchie going up against Kenny Zhu, a political commentator and author. Enjoy.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the bullpen. Well, he's back in the bullpen today. We got Kenny Zhu. Kenny Zhu is the author of An Inconvenient Minority and president of Color Us United. Has worked as director for media outreach against California Proposition 16. Those are your race preferences. And written for national publications like City Journal, The Federalist, The Daily Signal, and Washington Examiner. Kenny, thank you for coming back, brother. How are you?
Thanks for having me again.
Absolutely. We're going to chop it up about critical race theory and how it correlates to education in the school system. I don't want to presume what you know or believe about this topic, so I'm going to allow you to give us your sentiment.
We discussed previously, while before we got on the call about what we wanted critical race theory, the definition of it. Seems to me that you argue that critical race theory challenges liberal or mainstream approaches to racial justice, and argues that racism or the experience of racial inequity in this nation is primarily because of structures, not because of individual prejudices. My opinion on this matter is that when we teach
I want to correct you on one thing. That is the study of critical race theory. That does not mean that is the sentiment of everyone who studies critical race theory.
Sure.
Just so you understand, there's a significant difference in that.
Sure. Well, when it comes to education, when it comes to pedagogy and teaching children, I think we need a more empowering racial narrative than critical race theory. That's basically my argument.
Okay. You are aware that critical race theory is not taught in K through 12 education.
That's not true. That's definitely not true. I've had the pleasure of investigating several districts that have instituted things like Black Lives Matter in the schools.
That's not critical race theory.
It's principles based off of critical race theory. It's principles based off of critical race theory. It's saying that the United States is a systemically racist country, that white people are inherently prejudiced against Black people, that structures of society collaborate to attempt to, denigrate or destroy Black people in this country. Yeah, that's critical race theory.
So let me help you out here because I think you're confused. Critical race theory is a theoretical framework. It's an advanced theoretical construct, typically taught in advanced level collegiate studies. As a matter of fact, most collegiate studies or most college degrees do not require that you even learn one of those theories. But if you get to graduate, doctoral, even law school studies, you learn critical race theory. You do certain research in social research programs. You're gonna learn things like grounded theory, et cetera. That's a way to analyze data.
So are you aware of?
Allow me to finish, sir. It's a data-driven approach. I will give you an example of what critical race theory looks to deconstruct as a theory, okay? Let me take you to 1882. The Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882. You want to explain to us what that act was about?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It excluded, it was a law passed by the federal government that excluded Chinese from coming to this country and immigrating successfully into this country.
Was that racist, bigoted, prejudicial?
Of course.
Okay. Was that constructed by a law, statute, institution, or government?
Yeah, of course. It's the Chinese Exclusion Act.
That's right. That's what critical race theory seeks to examine under the theoretical core, that racism plays a part in the institutional norms, ordinances, laws, and statutes that are normative. During the time of its passing, it was normative. The majority of Americans agreed. The majority of those in the world at that time in our country agreed with exclusionary doctrine. And it was not limited to the Chinese. There was exclusionary doctrine related to descendants of Africans that said, even if you're born on American soil, if you are Black, you are African, you are not in fact American. That was another form of exclusionary doctrine. Critical race theory seeks to understand the connection between the law that was passed, which you have admitted was rooted in racism, and how to deconstruct it, because it did in fact create an inequity beyond the exclusion. That's it. It's real simple. And once again,
do you believe we've made progress since then, since the passage of the Chinese Exclusion Act?
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Good.
Yes. Progress has been made.
So I mean, this is what I'm talking about. Then I'm saying the way that race is taught in schools, which is what I wanted to talk about. We should teach race, and yes, we should teach the historical racism. What I'm opposed to teaching is that racism still defines people's abilities to get ahead in this country today.
That's really interesting. You say that in the late 1800s, laws did in fact limit the Chinese from getting ahead in this country, but that has all of that has completely 100% evaporated, correct?
I mean, it is gradually, it's not 100% evaporated, but it is gradually, yes, grown to become
critical race theory does not disagree with you on that.
Factor in the elevation of people in this country, yes.
Critical race theory doesn't disagree with you on the gradualism of progress and change. And so I don't know what beef you have with that. Let me take you back to your proclamation in the beginning of our conversation that critical race theory is in fact taught in K through 12 education. There was a study, there was a survey done this was an American education survey that said, hey, are you all teaching critical race theory? 96% of the educators said no. There is no critical race theory being taught in our institutions. And the vast majority of those educators polled were actually 100% against it ever being taught in K through 12 education. Even those that were aware of the concept and generally friendly to the notion of critical race theory also said it should not be taught in K through 12 education. My question to you is, with 96% of educators, public school educators being surveyed saying, no, we do not teach that in the school system, and with the vast majority of them also saying it should not be taught in K through 12 education because it is an advanced theoretical framework, and with many of them actually being friendly to the concept of critical race theory, how is it that all of a sudden critical race theory inside of school systems has become a primary debate when it is really virtually not being done? And you have states like Texas that have passed laws, an entire state law that says if you teach the KKK, you cannot add deference to the teaching, meaning you cannot teach them as morally reprehensible. You cannot add deference, morality, or ethics to that teaching anymore. Don't you find it more offensive that we can no longer call the KKK evil in the United States of America, primarily by way of a state of Texas? Don't you find that to be more egregious in our education system than what maybe 4% of educators say they teach?
Have you heard of critical pedagogy?
Of course I have.
Have you heard of Paulo Freire?
Of course.
Okay, so you must have heard of the term critical consciousness. The idea of critical race theorists in education, stemming from. You want to answer my question about Texas, the Texas law? So I'm tracing to you the valid concern that many people raise about critical race theory in schools. The Teachers College Columbia, Harvard Law School is implementing what critical pedagogy is the implementation of critical theoretical practices into education and practice. So you're not going to say, okay, we're teaching you critical race theory, but you're assuming the premises of critical race theory. I'll give you an example, a stark example. Ethnic studies recently passed in California. Done a ton of research on ethnic studies. It explicitly says in its liberated ethnic studies model curriculum, we're going to use a critical consciousness to evaluate the marginalized races in this country. That is Blacks, Asians, Chicano, Latin Americans, and Native Americans. Ethnic studies is basically teaching from an oppressor-oppressed framework. And within those, and I've taken a look at the curriculum. That's what it is. It is critical pedagogy put into practice.
That's really interesting. So you still didn't address what I said about Texas passing a law that says you can no longer provide deference in the teaching as it relates to the KKK, which is a known evil. I'm a former high school teacher. You don't just teach curriculum, you also teach character. And that's part of the process of education. It's not just about the knowledge, it's also about the application of that knowledge in the correct manner. Do you agree with the Texas law that says the KKK by law can never be taught as an evil or an adversarial aspect of the United States of America?
Yeah, I would need to know more context about the Texas law.
Okay, you do that. We'll bring you back next time so you can chop it up about that Texas law.
In fact, I wanted to talk about the things that we talked about last time, and I wanted to follow up with you because I did do some more research. Like you brought up some studies, for example, that showed that Asian people, by virtue of their last name, if your last name is Xu or Wong, you're less likely to get callbacks, in interviews, which is a common thing. Well, I actually looked at New Microeconomic Studies, Tian Lo, 2009. Right now, at this moment, conditional upon education, Asian males and Black females earn more conditional on education than the average American. So in actuality, what you're seeing here, and so this is not a,
sir, let me just
you need more education to make more in this country anymore.
That's what you have just proclaimed is 100% untrue based on statistical data. white individuals.
I'm gonna go ahead
and cite something to you. I'm gonna cite it to you, brother. Sure. Based on the Department of Labor statistics, black people, black males make around 70 cents on the dollar as their white male counterparts in a similar job, similar experience, similar degree. Black females are ticking in a very similar way, around 68 cents per dollar, very same elements apply. Let me go ahead and highlight to you the 28% callback study that was conducted by the University of Toronto and Ryerson University. They both did blind studies and had the same conclusive data. You can look this up when you get a moment. You can look it up while I'm talking to you. Job applicants with Asian sounding names received 28% less callbacks for an interview than if you kept all of the information the same and put an Anglo sounding name on the application. NPR reports that university researchers based their results on data directly from the American Economic Association study. Kenny, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay, you are one of the Asian Americans. Do you feel that discrimination is a real thing in America, that Asian Americans are actually discriminated against? Do you at least agree to that?
I mean, look at my book. My book is about Asian discrimination. It's called An Inconvenient Minority. It's about how the Ivy Leagues discriminate against Americans. You know,
so you do believe that discrimination. Well,
so I'm
black people are
not
discriminated against too,
not privy to the fact that people are discriminated against in this country all the time for whatever reason.
Black folks
age,
are also
height,
discriminated
race,
against.
Youth,
real simple question.
Like that.
Black people also are discriminated against as well, correct?
Of course. Okay. But in certain scenarios, yes. But let me give you another thing. Right now,
so are Asians only discriminated against? Let me ask you, brother Kenny, are Asians only discriminated against in certain scenarios, or is there discrimination against across the board?
Yeah, and only in certain scenarios. I just brought up to you this study, Tian Lo, Asian Americans, Asian men make higher incomes comparative on education, controlled for education level. So do black women, by the way, so do black women. So it's not necessarily a race thing, but I'll give you another example.
The study that you're citing, Kenny, give me a second.
Hey, if you're black in this country today, Dr. Richie, if you want a professorial position or you want to get into an Ivy League college, you have a significantly higher chance given your educational credentials than other people. So you're not just discriminated against in this system. That's what I mean to say.
Let me say this to you, man. I don't mean to interrupt you. But I do have to. I do have two roles here. One, I am host of the show, and I have to be moderator as well as a debater with you. Okay. If I were on your show, I would respect your format and program. I know how to be a guest in another man's home. I'm going to ask that you know how to be a guest in mine. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Let me correct you on one item. The study that you are mentioning is considered an outlier study, meaning it is contrary to the normative study of 90+% of the survey field. It is an outlier study with contrary data. The vast majority of the research science shows clearly that African Americans make less on the dollar. That is simply the truth, and that's from the Labor of Bureau Statistics. Real simple study to find. It's not complicated at all. 80% of Asian Americans say that they are actively discriminated against, and that the discrimination has led to employment discrimination as well. 59% said it was adverse, that discrimination was so adverse that it directly resulted in less pay from a job. And then you bring up the Ivy League institutions. Let me take you to Harvard, because you did some extensive writing about Harvard, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about Harvard. This is directly from the Harvard recruitment site that they report to the Department of Education. They started a race-conscious system where they had to look at race as a variable. Are you with me so far?
Right.
Okay. Your proclamation is somehow it created an adversarial atmosphere to the recruitment or the acceptance of Asian American students. Am I right so far?
Yep.
Okay, here's the data, sir. According to those statistics that were submitted and sworn by way of affidavit to the Department of Education. Harvard's admission statistics show that the share of its admitted class that Asian American students, after they looked at race and became a race-conscious institution, Asian Americans grew by 27% in their actual student body. Asians were accepted into the institution at a higher level when race was a factor, not a lower level. And let me also do this because it's important to the conversation of the Asian community. You made a claim last time you were on my show. You said, hey, why do Asians do better at this? Why do they do better at that? And truly, they do better in some areas. They do worse in some areas. But when you look at data, you have to look at the fine print, brother. So let me give you the fine print. The Asian community is broken down into various communities like Nepalese, Hmong, and others. Let me give you a stat. The poverty rate among the Nepalese American, which is codified as Asian American in the survey, is 21% higher than the official poverty rate. They're actually poorer. When you look at Hmong Americans, they are 20% less likely to have a bachelor's degree than the average American. They are codified in the Asian statistics. And when you look at Indian Americans, they are 70% of them have a bachelor's degree and are higher on the spectrum, more so than the average American. So you have fluctuations. If the idea was that the Asian community simply does better line by line and item by item, you are now discounting the Nepalese. You are now discounting the Hmong. And if you're saying that somehow all you have to do, brother, is do better and not look at a race related system approach, then that means you stand against 80% of Asian Americans who say, yes, racism has adversely impacted me and my family. I believe those personal stories inside of your community.
Can I get a little time to talk here?
Yep.
Okay. First of all, Black Americans are not discriminated in every facet of society. Black Americans are actually discriminated for in the Harvard race conscious system, okay? So that's already an example that we can point to that shows, hey, it's not a blanket racist discriminatory country against Blacks, against Asian. In certain scenarios, yes, Asians potentially have faced discrimination. And then in the Ivy Leagues, Asians definitely face discrimination. Harvard's own study, 43%. Harvard would be 43% Asian. Its own study, Office of Institutional Research 2013. Asians would be 43% of Harvard if they were admitted solely on the basis of merit. Instead, because of a race conscious system, they're cut down to less than half of that, to about 20% of the college. Finally,
Kenny, I'm going to talk about the word merit because I think you're utilizing it incorrectly.
Based on objective merit, grades, test scores, extracurriculars, the things that anybody would agree should be used in
merit is never objective. Merit is subjective because of the needs of the institution and the background of the scholar. I may not want a 4.0 student that does 0 extracurricular activities. Maybe I want a 3.5 student who's president of the student government. That is an objective standard set by the institution. Continue.
Okay, finally, to the point about teaching race in schools, this ultimately you don't want a system that causes people to blame the structures of society for whatever inequities are present in their society or their own life. Because what that does is it just creates an atmosphere where a person is unlikely to want to achieve, to get to a higher position in life.
All right, well, that definitely has not been the result of the data because we are not blaming, we are setting remedy. You cannot change what you fail to acknowledge. The systems, including the Chinese Exclusionary Act, they were changed because individuals blamed the government for that act and said it must be fixed. So you can't fix, brother, what you failed to acknowledge. Kenny, I'm flat out of time. I do appreciate you being on the show. Thank you, man.
Okay, thank you.